So I want to actually extend the last conversation that we had about personal projects because I think there's another aspect to that we didn't talk about. And it's the fact that you can use your personal projects to help you out at work. And what I mean by that is I would seek out opportunities to use what you're making in your personal time and try to create a an opportunity for yourself to present that at your place of work. So, whatever audience you can gather, if it's just your team of developers, if it's engineering leadership and developers, product owners, designers, whoever it is, try to get the largest audience that you can and share what you're making and just share these new technologies and creative ideas that you're working on because you never know what will come out of that, right? And the thing that you need to be looking for, I think, is creating these groups within your organization, within your company, or wherever you work, uh, and create these interest groups and talk about something. It can be a book, it can be your personal project, it can be a new language, it can be a new technology that you can introduce here, and just try to build your audience in terms of what how many people are seeing what you're building. Not because it's the greatest thing, but it just helps you develop not only a network of people where you're at, but it helps you develop a talking point that'll help you on later down the road at your company. Whether it's for like the mid-year review, their performance review, whatever it is, if you take the initiative to start this thing and start an interest group for this specific technology, that will help you on later down the road. And you never know, you might encounter a problem where you've already created the solution for it by way of your personal project, and you already have that code, and you can just move that code into your system, and you can create a working prototype really fast. These groups are really good for prototyping because it doesn't even have to be the technology that's used at the company. But if it's something that you find really interesting, you should think about a creative way to use some kind of technology to solve a problem, right? One problem that is just plagues so many things is bad data throughput, where we create these bottlenecks in our system because we're making so many expensive calls somewhere, and all of a sudden we have this backlog. You see it everywhere, and there's been so many creative approaches to handling data throughput. And if you can experiment and make something, like I was reading about single instruction, multiple data, SIMD programming. I'm working on something in Rust. I might have a video on that soon with vector. I forget what the specific. Because we're obviously working with vectors, but it was using a SIMD package in Rust, and it was measuring the performance characteristics of using SIMD versus just regular computing. And it's very fascinating. I was looking at SIMD in .NET as well, because there's a way to do that. And any kind of hardware acceleration you can get using vectors or spans in .NET is just extremely interesting. And not that that has a direct applicability to really what I work on, like professionally, but you just never know. You might think of something that you didn't think of, and you might think of, oh, wait a second, maybe I actually can use this here to process this data faster. And let's talk about it in a group. And hopefully you're around people that are just open to new ideas and creative solutions to do things. Because it's very, very hard to not only start a group, but maintain the group long term. If you've been part of any group, you know that they slowly trickle off. You'll start to get, okay, 10 people in the beginning, but you'll have 2 people at the end. And that's not really a fault of the group leader. So much as it's just a reflection of us in general as people. We just lose interest, unfortunately. But hopefully you're around people that are at least open to talking about it in the beginning and talking about it in a way that's not judgmental or critical, but just genuinely open and showing an expressiveness to learn and try to implement new things or new ways of working on something. Because that's really, I think, when the best things happen is when people are genuinely open to prototyping and creating unique and creative solutions, because there's so many things already laid out for us, right? All these frameworks have so much stuff built in. Whether it's templating, scaffolding, dependencies. I mean, there's so much stuff that just comes out of the box and it's pretty much already taken care of. And you don't want to feel like you're just like kind of connecting the wires, like you're just writing, okay, I have to put my authorization middleware, I have to connect, this endpoint or whatever. That stuff, like we can do that, right? We got that. But what if we try something new here? Well, let's talk about it. What does it do? Let's get the performance benchmarks of that and just see what happens. The worst setup you can find yourself in is if you are in an environment that's very closed off to experimentation and that's very quick to shut down new ideas. If you're in that environment, you need to look for somewhere else to work, because that environment will just not only make people bitter, but it's going to just burn everybody out, because you can't work with a micromanager like that. It's just it's not healthy. You need to work in a place where it's open to trying something. If somebody says, hey, I was reading this book about, that's great, let's talk about it. Like, let's spend, a couple minutes after stand-up discussing it. And if something, hey, wait a second, I thought of this thing too because I'm reading this. What if we connect the two and we got it? Bad, we just put it in our code. That stuff is awesome, because it's that stuff that not only inspires people, but is really when you begin to learn. Because if you implement something, let's say, I don't even know, you're trying to connect to a new cloud provider you're working with, and you run into an authorization problem that you have to uncover the weeds of, and you realize they're using some encryption algorithm that isn't compatible with your older version of this framework. Well, you have to re-architect something, and you get really into the weeds, but you learn a lot by doing it. And even if you don't go and use the thing that you're experimenting with, you still have gained all that knowledge of troubleshooting and problem solving, and then just write it up in a doc for later. And if you just never know. It's always the documentation that you feel like you're never going to look at again, or it's super obscure, that like a year down the road is like the most valuable documentation ever, because it's always that stuff. It's always like the random threads about the most obscure technical question out there that has, like, everyone knows it. It has like 2 views, 1 upvote, solve the problem, but it has like 1 comment. But it's like those random things that you need every once in a while are like the most the most helpful unblocking resources out there. But the person probably only got there because they were trying something new. And that's what I hope to at least talk about in here, because if you create those interest groups and you introduce, hey, I want to talk about Rust, or I want to talk about this new JavaScript framework, or React, or .NET, or Elixir, Phoenix Live View, Block, whatever it is. Just say, hey, talk to your manager, talk to somebody. Say, hey, I'm interested in starting this. I'm reading some books about it, and I want to have this group where we can just talk about maybe the potential of using it here, but I think it's just really powerful and a really efficient form of doing, XYZ. To start that conversation. If the group doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. You tried, but you should try again. And even if it's with the same thing, just try again. Maybe just target maybe a different audience, but just try. What I found, because I don't really like speaking in front of people that much. I do it, but it's not my favorite thing. But what I found is, if you can get an audience together, that's what you need, because that's when the growth happens. Not only you, but as a company as a whole, because that's when everyone gets together and say, hey, this is really cool. And the worst thing that I see is everyone has, you have these, uh, companies will have like their um, kind of like hack events where they'll make ideas and stuff. Those, I would say, should be the time when you try just the most outrageous, creative, just off the wall technical idea possible, because that's the time for it, right? That is the time to try this. We can't we can't just keep making these in the box, already have been done things and products, because they're already been done. We got to start thinking of stuff that's just so just out there, right, and just creative, because you'll probably start 100 projects. I've started so many personal that I've probably, but it's always the one that you just like, well, I'm probably not gonna. But then you start looking into the code a little more. And for me, it's been this Rust project. I didn't expect the Rust. I didn't expect me to be working on this Rust project and engines project as long as I have. But I'm so glad I did, because I have used this in my work. I've learned how to talk to so many different technologies, and I've gave a presentation on it, and I'm starting a group, and it's just insane, and I've had more fun doing this, doing YouTube. It's I hope that it's nuts. So I hope that we can continue this, because, or just, what I mean. All right, I gotta stop this. I'll see you guys in the next video.